Warren Buffett was kicked out of a hotel for looking like a common old man. But hours later, he returned and made a surprising decision. Before we dive into this compelling story, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to never miss any plot twists. On a chilly afternoon in New York City, the prestigious Grand Plaza Hotel's lobby buzzed with its usual sophisticated energy. The marble floors gleamed under crystal chandeliers, and well-heeled guests moved about with practiced elegance. At the front desk, Thomas Chen, a young receptionist with perfectly coiffed hair and an expensive suit, maintained what he considered the hotel's impeccable standards. When the elderly man shuffled through the revolving doors, Thomas' perfectly maintained smile faltered. The man wore a worn sweater, loose-fitting pants, and scuffed shoes. He carried only a small leather suitcase that had seen better days. His wire-rimmed glasses sat slightly crooked on his nose, and his silver hair was somewhat disheveled from the wind outside. "Good afternoon," the elderly man said warmly, approaching the front desk. "I'd like a suite for tonight, please." Thomas' eyes narrowed as he assessed the potential guest. His training taught him to judge books by their covers, despite the cliché warning against it. "I'm terribly sorry, sir," he said, his tone dripping with barely concealed disdain, "but we're fully booked at the moment. Perhaps I could recommend something more suitable elsewhere." The elderly man's expression remained peaceful. "Could I speak with the manager, please?" Thomas' perfectly manicured hand reached for the security button under the desk. Within moments, two broad-shouldered men in dark suits appeared. "Sir, we'll have to ask you to leave," one said firmly, placing a hand on the elderly man's arm. The old man adjusted his glasses, looked around at the curious onlookers, and quietly walked out. What no one in the lobby realized was that this simple interaction would trigger a chain of events that would shake the very foundation of the hotel industry in New York City. The next morning dawned bright and clear over Manhattan's skyline. The Grand Plaza Hotel was preparing for its biggest event of the season, the International Investment Summit. The manager, Richard Sterling, strutted through the lobby, ensuring everything was perfect for the incoming VIP guests. A fleet of black luxury vehicles pulled up outside the hotel's entrance. Chauffeurs rushed to open doors for well-dressed executives and business magnates. Among them emerged a familiar figure, the same elderly man from the previous night. But this time he wasn't alone. The color drained from Thomas's face as recognition dawned. The unsuitable guest he'd dismissed was Warren Buffett, one of the wealthiest and most influential investors in the world. The Oracle of Omaha stood there in an expertly tailored suit, surrounded by a group of powerful business associates. Richard Sterling rushed forward, his usual composure cracking. "Mr. Buffett, what an honor. There must have been some misunderstanding yesterday. Please, allow us to offer you our finest suite." Buffett raised his hand, silencing the manager's rambling. "That won't be necessary," he said, his voice carrying across the now silent lobby. "I'm here for something far more important." The tension in the air was palpable, as hotel staff and guests alike waited to hear what would come next. Thomas gripped the edge of his desk, his knuckles white, as he realized the magnitude of his mistake. The events about to unfold would change, not just his life, but the entire landscape of luxury hospitality in New York City. The lobby of the Grand Plaza Hotel fell into a hushed silence as Warren Buffett cleared his throat. Even the soft classical music playing in the background seemed to fade away, as if the hotel itself was holding its breath. "You see," Buffett began, his voice calm yet authoritative, "yesterday wasn't a mistake. It was a clear demonstration of the culture in this establishment, and that's precisely why I'm here today." Richard Sterling, the manager, felt a chill run down his spine. "What do you mean, Mr. Buffett?" Buffett adjusted his tie and continued, "I had plans to invest in this hotel. Yesterday, I wanted to experience how an ordinary customer would be treated. What I witnessed was arrogance, prejudice, and service that judges people based on appearances." Thomas, the receptionist, felt his legs go weak. He gripped the desk even tighter, willing himself not to faint. Therefore, Buffett went on, now addressing the hotel owner, who had hurried to join the group. "I've decided to invest elsewhere. More than that, I'm going to acquire a competing hotel right here in this city, and I guarantee that there, every customer will be treated with respect, regardless of their appearance. The impact of these words was immediate and profound. The hotel owner's face paled, and Richard Sterling looked as if he might be sick. Thomas felt the room spinning around him. But Buffett wasn't finished. He turned to face Thomas directly, his eyes kind but firm. "Young man, I hope this situation has taught you something valuable. The world can surprise you when you least expect it. Today I'm a billionaire. But what if I had been just an ordinary elderly man? How would you treat someone who seemingly has nothing to offer you?" Thomas couldn't find his voice to respond. He simply lowered his head, shame washing over him in waves. Buffett then turned to his associates and gestured towards the exit. "Let's go. We have a new hotel to open." As Buffett and his entourage left the lobby, the impact of his words lingered in the air. The Grand Plaza Hotel had just witnessed its greatest mistake transform into a bitter lesson, and the birth of a competition that could change everything. In the days that followed, the story of Warren Buffett's rejection from the Grand Plaza Hotel spread like wildfire. News outlets, websites, and social media platforms buzzed with the incident, and the hotel's unsettling reputation plummeted. Guests cancelled reservations en masse. Companies withdrew planned events. Influencers and celebrities publicly criticized the hotel's management, declaring that an establishment that judges people by their appearance doesn't deserve true clientele. Meanwhile, Buffett moved forward with his plan. Within weeks, he finalized the acquisition of a competing hotel, completely overhauling its service culture. His new establishment, aptly named the Everyman's Inn, adopted a clear philosophy: treat all guests with respect, regardless of their appearance or perceived status. The contrast became evident almost immediately. While the Grand Plaza Hotel struggled to survive the crisis, Buffett's hotel flourished. Major companies shifted their events to the Everyman's Inn, and curious customers began to migrate, eager to experience the unique hospitality that Buffett promoted. Thomas, the former receptionist of the Grand Plaza, watched from afar as his world crumbled. He had been fired shortly after the incident, his mistake too costly for the hotel to ignore. As he struggled to find new employment, he couldn't help but reflect on the lesson he had learned in the harshest possible way. The fall of the Grand Plaza seemed inevitable. Its once bustling lobby now stood eerily quiet, a testament to the power of kindness and the danger of judgment. But amidst the chaos and uncertainty, a new chapter in New York's hospitality industry was just beginning to unfold. Little did anyone know, the most surprising twist in this tale was yet to come. The Everyman's Inn quickly became the talk of New York City. Its unique approach to hospitality, championed by Warren Buffett himself, drew curiosity and admiration from all corners of society. The hotel's lobby bustled with a diverse array of guests, from business tycoons to everyday tourists, all treated with equal respect and warmth. One sunny afternoon, Buffett sat in a comfortable armchair in the lobby, observing the harmonious flow of guests and staff. He smiled to himself, content with the positive change he had initiated. Suddenly, a familiar face caught his attention. Thomas, the former receptionist from the Grand Plaza Hotel, nervously approached. His once impeccable suit was now slightly wrinkled, and dark circles under his eyes spoke of sleepless nights. "Mr. Buffett," Thomas began, his voice trembling, I wanted to apologize. What I did was unforgivable, and well, I lost my job because of my arrogance." Buffett listened attentively, his expression neutral. Thomas continued, "I've been searching for a new opportunity, a job. I've learned my lesson, sir. I truly have." A tense silence filled the air. Buffett studied the young man before him, noting the genuine remorse in his eyes. After what seemed like an eternity, Buffett spoke. "Everyone makes mistakes, Thomas. The important thing is to learn from them." Relief washed over Thomas' face. Would you give me a second chance, sir?" Buffett's lips curved into a slight smile. "Let's do this. You can start here, but from the bottom. You won't be a receptionist. You'll begin by helping with housekeeping. If you prove that you've changed, you can work your way up again." Thomas' eyes widened in disbelief. He had expected outright rejection, but instead received something far more valuable, an opportunity for redemption. "Thank you, Mr. Buffett," Thomas said, his voice thick with emotion. I promise I won't let you down." As Thomas walked away to meet with the hotel's HR department, Buffett reflected on the power of forgiveness and the potential for personal growth. He knew that money came and went, but character, that was an investment few knew how to make. Chapter 6. The ripple effect as weeks turned into months. The Everyman's Inn continued to thrive. The hotel industry watched in awe as Buffett's experiment in equitable hospitality defied conventional wisdom and set new standards. Thomas, true to his word, threw himself into his new role with humility and determination. He scrubbed floors, changed linens, and assisted guests with a newfound appreciation for every job in the hotel. His colleagues, initially skeptical, soon warmed to his changed attitude and work ethic. One day, as Thomas was helping an elderly couple with their luggage, he overheard a conversation between two businessmen in the lobby. "I can't believe the difference," one said. "I used to stay at the Grand Plaza, but this place, it's something else." The other nodded in agreement. "It's not just about luxury anymore. It's about how they make you feel like you matter regardless of who you are." Thomas couldn't help but smile. He understood now, on a profound level, what Buffett had been trying to teach him all along. Meanwhile, the Grand Plaza Hotel struggled to recover from the scandal. Despite numerous public apologies and promises of change, their reputation remained tarnished. The once proud establishment was forced to undergo a complete overhaul of its management and service philosophy. The incident had sent shockwaves through the entire hospitality industry. Hotels across the city and even the country began reassessing their approach to customer service. Training programs were revised, emphasizing empathy and equal treatment for all guests. As for Warren Buffett, he used the success of the Everyman's Inn as a platform to speak about the importance of ethical business practices and the value of treating every individual with dignity. His message resonated far beyond the hotel industry, inspiring a new generation of entrepreneurs to prioritize humanity in their pursuit of success. Little did anyone know, the story of the Everyman's Inn was far from over. A new challenge was on the horizon, one that would test the hotel's principles in ways no one could have anticipated. The Everyman's Inn celebrated its first anniversary. A new crisis loomed on the horizon. A global economic downturn hit New York City hard, affecting businesses across all sectors. The hospitality industry was particularly vulnerable, with many hotels struggling to maintain occupancy rates. Warren Buffett called an emergency meeting with his management team. The mood in the conference room was tense as they reviewed the grim financial forecasts. "We're facing a 40% drop in bookings for the next quarter," the financial director reported, her voice strained. "If this trend continues, we might have to consider layoffs or even closure." A heavy silence fell over the room. The success they had worked so hard to achieve now seemed precarious. Buffett, however, remained calm, his eyes scanning the worried faces around him. "Before we make any drastic decisions," he said, "I want us to think creatively. How can we stay true to our principles while weathering this storm?" Thomas, who had recently been promoted to guest relations coordinator, hesitantly raised his hand. "Mr. Buffett, if I may, I have an idea." All eyes turned to him, and Thomas felt a flutter of nervousness in his stomach, but he pressed on, remembering how far he'd come. What if we open our doors to those hit hardest by the economic crisis? We could offer heavily discounted rates to people who've lost their jobs or are struggling. It might not be profitable in the short term, but it could generate goodwill and positive word of mouth. The room buzzed with murmurs, some skeptical, others intrigued. Buffett leaned forward, a glimmer of interest in his eyes. "Go on, Thomas, how would we make this work?" As Thomas outlined his plan, a sense of excitement began to build. It was risky, unconventional, and exactly the kind of bold move that had put the Everyman's Inn on the map in the first place. The announcement of the Everyman's Inn's new initiative sent shockwaves through the city. While other hotels were raising prices to compensate for lower occupancy, Buffett's establishment was offering pay-what-you-can rates to those affected by the economic crisis. The media latched onto the story, with headlines proclaiming, "Billionaires. Hotel becomes refuge for the downtrodden." Critics called it a publicity stunt, while supporters hailed it as a revolutionary act of corporate compassion. Within days, the hotel was flooded with applications. A rigorous vetting process was put in place to ensure the program reached those truly in need. Soon, the lobby of the Everyman's Inn became a melting pot of humanity Wall Street executives, who had lost everything, rubbed shoulders with struggling artists and laid-off factory workers. Thomas found himself at the heart of this transformation. His job now involved not just ensuring guest comfort, but also connecting visitors with job resources, financial advisors, and mental health support. One evening, as he was helping a family check in, he overheard their young daughter ask, "Mommy, is this our new home?" The mother, tears in her eyes, replied, "No, sweetheart, but it's a safe place while we figure things out." Thomas felt a lump in his throat. He remembered his own journey and how this hotel had given him a second chance. Now it was doing the same for so many others. The initiative wasn't without its challenges. Some wealthy regulars complained about the changing clientele. The hotel's expenses soared as they provided additional services to support their struggling guests. But Buffett remained steadfast. In a press conference that made international news, he declared, "A hotel is more than just a place to sleep. It can be a beacon of hope, a community of support. We're not just in the hospitality business, we're in the business of human dignity." As the economic crisis deepened, the Everyman's Inn stood as a symbol of resilience and compassion in a city known for its cutthroat nature. But the true test of their commitment was yet to come, as forces beyond their control threatened to unravel everything they had built. As news of the Everyman's Inn's unconventional approach spread, it sparked a citywide conversation about corporate responsibility and compassion in times of crisis. Other businesses began to take notice, inspired by Buffett's bold move. A local restaurant chain started offering pay-it-forward meals, allowing customers to pre-purchase meals for those who couldn't afford them. A tech startup initiated a program to provide free coding classes to unemployed individuals. Even some of the city's most prestigious law firms began offering pro bono services to those facing eviction or bankruptcy due to the economic downturn. Thomas, now fully immersed in his role as a community liaison at the hotel, found himself invited to speak at local business forums about the Everyman's Inn's initiative. He shared stories of lives changed and hope restored, his own journey serving as a powerful testament to the possibility of second chances. One evening, as Thomas was leaving work, he noticed a familiar face among the new arrivals: Richard Sterling, the former manager of the Grand Plaza Hotel. The once proud man now stood in line, suitcase in hand, looking decidedly humbled. Their eyes met, and for a moment neither knew what to say. Then Thomas stepped forward, extending his hand. "Welcome to the Everyman's Inn, Mr. Sterling. How can I assist you today?" The simple act of kindness brought tears to Richard's eyes. "I've lost everything," he whispered. "The Grand Plaza, my reputation, I never thought he'd end up here." Thomas nodded sympathetically. "I understand, sir. I've been where you are. But this place, it's not just a hotel. It's a new beginning." As Thomas helped Richard check in, he realized how far he'd come from that arrogant young receptionist who had once turned away Warren Buffett. The hotel hadn't just changed its guests' lives, it had transformed him too. Despite the positive impact of the Everyman's Inn's initiative, storm clouds were gathering on the horizon. The prolonged economic crisis was taking its toll, and the hotel's financial reserves were dwindling rapidly. Buffett called another meeting with his management team. The mood was somber as they reviewed the latest figures. "We're operating at a loss," the financial director reported. "At this rate, we have maybe 3 months before we're forced to shut down." The room fell silent. They had all known this was a possibility, but hearing it stated so bluntly was still a shock. Thomas spoke up, his voice determined. "There has to be something we can do. We can't let this place close. It means too much to too many people." Buffett nodded, a thoughtful expression on his face. "You're right, Thomas. This is more than just a business now. It's a lifeline for many. We need to find a way to keep it going." Just then, there was a knock at the door. A staff member entered, looking flustered. "Mr. Buffett, sir, there's someone here to see you. Says it's urgent." Buffett raised an eyebrow. "Who is it?" The staff member hesitated. It's the owner of the Grand Plaza Hotel, sir." A murmur ran through the room. What could the owner of their former competitor want at a time like this? Buffett straightened his tie. "Show him in," he said calmly. As the door opened again, tension filled the air. The next few moments could change everything. Little did they know, the true test of the Everyman's Inn's principles was about to begin. The owner of the Grand Plaza Hotel, Marcus Blackwood, entered the room. His usually impeccable appearance was slightly disheveled, and dark circles under his eyes betrayed sleepless nights. The room fell silent as he approached Buffett. "Mr. Buffett," Blackwood began, his voice strained, "I come to you not as a competitor, but as someone who has learned a valuable lesson." Buffett nodded, encouraging him. "The Grand Plaza is on the verge of bankruptcy. Our reputation never recovered from the incident, but what you've done here, it's remarkable. You've turned a hotel into a beacon of hope." He paused, gathering courage for what he was about to say next. "I have a proposal. I want to donate the Grand Plaza to your cause." A collective gasp filled the room. Thomas felt his heart racing. Was this really happening? Buffett leaned forward, intrigued. "Go on, Mr. Blackwood. The Grand Plaza has more rooms, more facilities. If we combine our resources, we could help even more people. I'm willing to step down and let you take full control. All I ask is that you consider retaining our staff. They shouldn't suffer from my mistakes." The room buzzed with excitement and disbelief. Buffett sat back, a small smile playing on his lips. "That's quite an offer, Mr. Blackwood, but I have to ask why." Blackwood's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "Because you showed me what true hospitality means. It's not about luxury or exclusivity. It's about human dignity. And I want to be part of that." Buffett extended his hand. "Mr. Blackwood, I believe we have a lot to discuss." As they shook hands, Thomas couldn't help but feel that he was witnessing a pivotal moment in history. The merger of these two hotels could change the face of hospitality forever. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of activity. The merger of the Everyman's Inn and the Grand Plaza was front-page news, sparking debates about the future of the hospitality industry. Thomas found himself at the center of it all, working tirelessly to integrate the two hotels' operations. His experience on both sides proved invaluable, as he helped bridge the gap between the old way of doing things and the new, more compassionate approach. The Grand Plaza underwent a dramatic transformation. Luxury suites were converted into communal spaces for job training and financial counseling. The Grand Ballroom became a hub for community events and support group meetings. Even the spa was repurposed as a wellness center, offering stress management and mental health services. One day, as Thomas was overseeing the changes, he bumped into Richard Sterling, his former boss at the Grand Plaza. Richard was now working as a concierge, having insisted on starting from a more humble position. "It's quite a change, isn't it?" Richard mused, looking around the bustling lobby. Thomas nodded. "It certainly is, but a good one, I think." Richard smiled, a genuine warmth in his eyes that Thomas had never seen before. "You know, I used to think success in this business was about catering to the elite. But now I see true hospitality is about making everyone feel like they belong." As they chatted, Warren Buffett approached, a newspaper in hand. "Gentlemen, have you seen this?" The headline read, "Hotel Revolution Buffett's Compassionate Capitalism Sparks Global Movement." The article detailed how hotels around the world were beginning to adopt similar models, offering support to struggling communities while redefining the meaning of luxury. Buffett's eyes twinkled. "It seems we've started something bigger than ourselves. But remember, this is just the beginning. The real challenge lies ahead. How do we make this sustainable? How do we ensure that compassion remains at the heart of our business, even when times get tough?" Thomas and Richard exchanged determined looks. They knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but they were ready for the challenge. After all, they weren't just in the hotel business anymore. They were in the business of changing lives. As the sun set over the New York skyline, casting a golden glow over the newly unified hotel, Thomas couldn't help but feel a sense of pride and purpose. The journey that had begun with a simple act of prejudice had led to a revolution in hospitality, and it was only just beginning. As months passed, the unified Grand Everyman's Plaza, as it came to be known, became a model for a new kind of hospitality, delegations from hotels around the world visited to learn about their innovative approach. Thomas, now promoted to Director of Community Relations, found himself hosting workshops and giving talks on their philosophy of compassionate service. One crisp autumn morning, Thomas stood before a group of international hoteliers in the Grand Ballroom. As he shared stories of lives changed and communities uplifted, he couldn't help but reflect on his own journey. "The true measure of luxury," he said, his voice filled with conviction, "is not in the thread count of your sheets or the price of your champagne. It's in the dignity you offer to every guest who walks through your doors." The room erupted in applause. Among the audience, Thomas spotted a familiar face, the young receptionist who had taken his old job at the original Everyman's Inn. She gave him a thumbs up, and Thomas felt a surge of pride. The cycle of mentorship and growth continued. Hotels in cities from Tokyo to London, Sydney to São Paulo, were adopting similar models. The hospitality industry was undergoing a seismic shift, with social responsibility becoming as important as profit margins. But with this success came new challenges. As more hotels followed their lead, some began to question whether the model was being diluted or exploited for marketing purposes. Buffett and his team knew they needed to stay true to their core values while continuing to innovate. 5 years after the merger, the Grand Everyman's Plaza stood as a beacon of hope in New York City. Its success had not only transformed the lives of countless individuals, but had also rejuvenated the surrounding neighborhood. Small businesses thrived, crime rates dropped, and a sense of community flourished. On the hotel's 5th anniversary, Warren Buffett called a special meeting. The original team, including Thomas, Richard, and even Marcus Blackwood, gathered in the same conference room where it had all begun. Buffett looked around the room, a twinkle in his eye. "We've achieved more than I ever thought possible," he began. "But I have one last challenge for you all." The room fell silent, anticipation building. "It's time for me to step back," Buffett continued, "and I want one of you to take the reins." Shocked murmurs filled the room. Buffett raised his hand for silence. "I've watched you all grow, learn, and embody the principles we've built here. Now I want you to decide amongst yourselves who will lead this organization into the future." As Buffett left the room, the team looked at each other, a mix of excitement and trepidation on their faces. They knew that whoever took on this role would be shaping not just the future of the hotel, but potentially the future of hospitality itself. Thomas felt a tap on his shoulder. He turned to see Richard and Marcus both smiling at him. "It should be you, Thomas," Richard said softly. Marcus nodded in agreement. "You've lived this transformation more than any of us. You understand both sides of the story." Thomas felt overwhelmed. From a judgmental receptionist to potentially leading a global movement, the journey seemed almost unbelievable. As the team began to discuss the future, Thomas looked out the window at the bustling city below. He saw not just buildings and streets, but countless stories of struggle, resilience, and hope. He realized that their work was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. The sun set over New York City, casting a warm glow over the Grand Everyman's Plaza. Inside, a group of dedicated individuals continued to plan for a future where hospitality meant more than just a place to stay. It meant a place to belong, to grow, and to dream. As the meeting concluded and the team filed out, energized by the possibilities ahead, Thomas lingered for a moment. He thought about the elderly man in the worn sweater who had walked into his lobby all those years ago, and how that moment had changed everything. With a smile, he turned off the lights and stepped into the corridor, ready to write the next chapter in this remarkable story.